Welcome to setting up your space part 2. So in this part, we're going to introduce you to something called subversions. What is a subversion? Subversion is a version control system that allows you to manage files and projects for changes history, merge, revert, release, etc. So if you go to this webpage at svnbook.red-bean.com, and then you can see a free version of the book called Version Control with Subversion. So basically what that means is that, let's imagine you work on your projects and then you're trying to keep your changes history to your code so that later, like 2 weeks later, you want to go back to a version that you worked on 2 weeks ago. That's where Subversion can help you to keep track of the changes and at what version in time and what version that you want to keep. So with Subversion, you can do that very easily. And also imagine you work on a team and many people work on different part of the modules of the code, and then later let's say you are a lead programmer, and then all of your programmers pass the code to you, and so it's your job to merge them into a single file. So what you can do is you can just use Subversion to do that very easily. So with that being said, let's take a look how Subversion work. Subversion, to start with the core structure, something called a repository. A repository is, in a simple term, is a container that contains all of the core files for that particular project. You can have many repository as you want. And the structure of repository is starting with branches, tags, and trunk. There are many programmers have different definition how to work, but in general term, here that means branches means it's a current working directory that is yet to be approved for the trunk. In other words, that is your current working directory. It is something that you work on before you send it to your trunk folder. For example, let's say you come to work in the morning. This is where you work your code, and the first thing in the morning is from the branches. You add in new features, you play around with the code, you test some code, and you do some experiment with the code. Your code may contain bugs, etc. Stay in the branches. So once you have finished implementing new features, or you think that you figure out the bugs, and so you send it to the trunk. The person who manages the trunk usually is the lead programmer. The purpose of the trunk folder is it contains the most recent updated code base with no bugs, clean code, and all of the feature added to the code. So let's say if you are a lead programmer, your job is to merge the code together and make sure there's no bug, clean code, and all of the requested new feature added to the code. So here's an example that I put. Let's say you work hard adding a new feature, fix a bug using under the branches. You send in your code to the SVN server. The lead program will check it and approve it accordingly. Your code will get merged into the trunk by your lead programmer using the SVN merge features. Then another thing called tags. The tags, it can be a snapshot of the trunk or a release version to the clients. You should never touch this code base in the tags ever. Use SVN to lock this code. For example, you release your game version 1.0 to the client. This is where you keep track of what code-based version that your clients have. Or if you feel that you have a stable version, let's say 0.9 or release candidate 1, then you make a snapshot from the trunk to the tags and name it like RC1 or stable 0.9 or something like that. So basically, a tag can be a stable release version to the public, but it also can be a snapshot of the trunk. Okay, a snapshot of the trunk, it can be like, let's say you have a large, not a large merge code space that you know that you have to do later on. So, and you know this current trunk is very stable, so you want to make a snapshot of it just in case when you have to later when you have to merge the next big batch of code, if something go wrong, then you can grab the snapshot of the text back to the trunk and then redo your merging. That's one of the symbol. So with the basics concept of the folder structure of in the SVN works, let us begin how you can set them up. Before we setting up, one thing you can keep in mind is when it asks for the URL of repository, it's always start with file and then the 3// and then the path to your repository. With that being said, let me demonstrate you how you can do that. So you can open up a empty folder, and then the first thing you have to do is create an empty folder called repository. For this course, you have to do a repository for every single assignment that you have to do. So the first thing you have to do is create a directory called assignment repository. Create that, make sure it's nothing in there, just an empty directory. Name it repository. So the next folder that you want to do is create create another folder called assignment underscore temporary. This is your temporary folder, just a folder that you can delete later on. Under this temporary folder, you're going to create 3 folders, one of them called branches, the other one called tags, and the last one called trunk. And the trunk folder, I just place a empty file of the C++ called like cmin underscore a1 for assignment 1. I play under the trunk. And the other 2 folders, they are empty. Branches and tags are empty. And that would then say that's for the assignment underscore temporary folder. The next folder you're going to create is the assignment 1 folder. This assignment 1 is where you're gonna get a working copy from your repository later on. So in the end, you're only gonna keep the assignment 1 and repository folder. You can delete the temporary folder later on. So with that being said, set up set up your repository. The first thing that you have to do is right click on your repository, and then you can click on SVN create repository here. Click on that, and then it can tell you repository was successfully created. If you check under this folder, it create a bunch of folders. This is gonna keep you a reversion history and all those stuff here. So with that being said, we go into the next one. We're gonna import some of the data that you want to keep track, or you want your repository to keep track of. That's why we create a temporary folder. So with that, under the temporary folder, make sure you have all of the 3 folders and the 1 single file in there. So we go back to the root, right click on that folder, and you're gonna click on SVN import. It's going to pop up this URL, so make sure you enter the correct URL. Start with the file / and then your repository. So say assignment repository, that's the only thing you need. So and then you click OK, and then it will adding all of those. You can see that it's adding the tag, the branch, the trunk into my repository. So basically, it's adding the copy from the temporary to the repository. So I'm done with that. You can just simply delete it, or you can just save it for your next assignment. Let's say you can just rename it for 2, and then just put your assignment 2 here, and then you can rename or say just your assignment 2. and then you just import that again into your repository. So once we have the data import to the repository, the next thing you want to do is to getting data from the repository. The way you can do that is you right click and you say checkout, and it's asking you for the repository URL and the checkout directory. That was the assignment one. So you click OK. We import all of the data from repository. You can see that the folder is now being a check green, and the top on the root is also there's a green check on that. That's mean we are importing from the repository assignment one. So in the way you can work around with this is the first thing you want to do is there is one file in the trunk, what is the cmin_81. This is your let's call it your stable version of the file or the project. So the first thing you want to do is you want to make a copy of the create a working copy from the trunk. So what you can do is you go back to the trunk and then right click to create, and click on SVN branch attack. Click on that and asking you the URL from the trunk to what URL you want to do it to the branch, and you want to click on the head revisions, the main revisions, and then you want to switch to working copy to a new branch or tag. So basically we're making a branch from the trunk so that we can start working on our branches instead of the trunk. The trunk only contains the most stable notebooks, clean code. So we click OK. So it say completed 2 revision. So now if you go back to your branches and you hit commit, it's not that commit, it's fine. Then you click on update revision, and you can see that our cmin._81 now showing up. So this is where you can start working on your code. So anytime you anytime you compile your code, make sure you right click, hit commit, and then update. You can also do this in the Visual Studio. There's a plugin that I told you to that I asked you to install earlier. You can just hit commit and update. It will update for you. So let's say if you update something here, test code. So you can see that there's a red dot there, a red exclamation mark there. That means there's a change in this folder. So what you can do is you just hit commit, and then it's asking you for just a revision message. You don't have to put anything, just click OK. You can put something in, unless you work in a big group, and then you say I add in commenting or whatever that is. So as you can see, it's turning green. This means it's all commit to the repository, and you can just click update to get the latest revisions. And you can also compare the difference from previous version. Let's say let's say you messed up your code and you want to say what your version, the previous version is. You can compare the two using this show different from previous version. As you can tell that my previous version I have empty line, and the newer version I add in the commenting code, the commenting line. So just play around with this SVN and make sure that you create the repository for every single assignments that you do. And yeah, it's required that everyone in this course is use a version for every single assignment you do. And how you can turn it in is that you make a copy of this um, repository browsers, and then make a screenshot of that so that I know that you are using it. The way you can do that is just right click on anywhere in your folder and then choose repository browsers, and here show the browser, then just make a copy of it and then put it under your assignments. Alright, this is a good way to get everyone started with Subvision so that when you working on a group project, or when you start working in the field, you know what Subversion is and how you know how to use it. Also, there's another famous Subversion program that you can use. It's called Perforce, but we don't use that in this course. But Perforce is widely used, so it's a good program for you to check it out when you have time. So with that being said, we are going to take a look at our first program in the next video.